Iran dismisses US President's threat as baseless, says Trump's rude rhetoric and arrogance stem from a deadlock and are intended to justify US military failures.
President Trump hails high-risk mission to rescue 2 U.S. airmen from Iran, says second mission in Iran to rescue Air Force personnel involved 155 aircraft, more than 170 aircraft and hundreds of troops involved in the entire operation.
The US President says the US military flew 7 hours in daylight for the first pilot and 7 hours flight in night to get the second airman. Rescue operations conducted for 45 hours, 56 minutes.
Iran says several aircraft were destroyed in Isfahan province during a U.S. mission to find a stranded airman. Video released by Iranian police was said to show Iranian forces firing at a U.S. aircraft.
NATO is a paper tiger. NATO is us. And when we needed them, we didn't need them, by the way. We didn't need them, obviously, because they haven't helped at all.
Donald Trump lashes out at NATO allies who did not support the US in the war with Iran and reiterated his desire to annex Greenland. Trump says NATO is a paper tiger that Russian President Putin is not afraid of.
NASA regains contact with Artemis II crew as their spacecraft passed behind the moon, reaching deepest point in space by any human.
Oil prices rise for a third straight day amid escalating US-Iran tensions, with WTI above $113 and Brent around $110 per barrel. Markets remain volatile as Trump heightens his rhetoric.
Now, American deadline looms large for Iran. Of course, there's less than 24 hours to go since Trump had announced the deadline.
And he's issued a stark warning: accept a deal or face complete demolition of critical civilian infrastructure. But Iran says that Trump's threats are baseless. President Trump is demanding that Tehran reopen the Strait of Hormuz by Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, or face a newly devastating round of bombing. Listen to these reactions.
The entire country can be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night. Plan, because of the power of our military, where every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock tomorrow night, where every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again. I mean, complete demolition by 12 o'clock. And it'll happen over a period of 4 hours if we wanted to.
Now, Iran dismissed the threats as baseless and said they would not deter ongoing military operations. Iranian military spokesperson said that U.S. President's rude rhetoric and arrogance stemmed from a deadlock and were intended to justify what he called repeated U.S. military failures.
The rude rhetoric, arrogance, and baseless threats of the delusional US president, arising from the deadlock he faces and aimed at justifying the repeated defeats of the US military, will have no effect on the continuation of offensive and crushing operations by the fighters of Islam against US and Israeli enemies, and will not repair the humiliation of the United States in West Asia. With the help of Almighty God, every action you take will add another defeat to your previous defeats.
Well, both Trump and Iran said that meanwhile, a proposal touted by international mediators for a 45-day ceasefire is not ready. Trump had said that earlier that the plan is a significant proposal, but he later went on to say that it was not good enough. Iranian state media quoted officials as saying that Tehran too has rejected a ceasefire and insists on the need for a definitive end to the conflict, not a temporary ceasefire.
Now, the UN Security Council is set to vote on Tuesday on a watered-down resolution addressing Iran's threats to the Strait of Hormuz. After more robust drafts earlier faced potential vetoes, Bahrain, backed by other oil-exporting Gulf countries, launched negotiations 2 weeks ago on a draft resolution that would have given a clear UN mandate to any state wishing to use force to unblock the strait. However, after objections from several veto-holding permanent members, including France, the latest draft does not expressly authorize force.
Iran has imposed an effective blockade on the critical waterway since the United States and Israel launched the war on the 28th of February, sending ripple effects throughout the global economy. Iran's virtual blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, through which 1/5 of the world's oil normally flows, has sent oil and gas prices soaring and pushed countries around the world to enact measures to contain the fallout.
All right, to discuss more on this, we're now being joined live by John Arath. He is a Senior Policy Director for the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation in Washington. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Always a pleasure talking to you. And of course, we'll begin by statements coming from Trump, where he said that, he threatened to take out Iran in one night. And at this point in time, he's also giving numbers at 12, at 12 o'clock or 4 hours will be done. It almost seems like he already knows what the plan is.
He may know what the plan is. I'm not sure that I do. His statements continue to be rather confusing. At one point, he said that the war is almost over, that U.S. objectives have almost completely been met. And then a few hours later, he's saying that there is still much to do and this can be done in one night. And then he says that it may be 2 or 3 more weeks. So it's a continually moving set of rhetoric, and it's difficult to understand what is meant by any of it.
John, the Strait of Hormuz, and it was just last week or maybe not even a week ago when the White House had said that this is not an objective. Donald Trump said, we're out of here. We don't need to open up the Strait of Hormuz. Countries that require oil from the strait, please go and get it for yourselves. We've done the hard part. Now, just hours ago, in that press conference, he was asked a pinpointed question and he said, the Strait of Hormuz remains a very big priority. Has US realized that they can't do without opening up the Strait of Hormuz, or are they feeling that hit, which we know they are, in terms of oil prices, and for that, they also need the strait to be opened?
I'm in Washington, and the prices for petrol and oil are much higher here than they were a month ago. So I think that people all over the world are feeling that particular pain. But again, it's conflicting statements that are coming out of the White House. As you noted, the president said that the Strait of Hormuz was not a problem. Then a few days later, he's saying it's very important. So I think what we're hearing from him is rhetoric to suit what he feels are the needs of the occasion. And it does not necessarily reflect a U.S. policy.
Mr. Arath, you have been a former member of the U.S. delegation for NATO for 3 years and also supervised NATO policy at the National Security Council. When you observe these statements coming from Trump, where he says that NATO is a paper tiger and that Putin is not afraid of, and then he also talks about how we didn't need help from the NATO, but when we if we asked for it, they said no. How do you react to these comments coming in from, and what kind of change do you think will have evolved over the years when it comes to relations of U.S. with NATO?
Again, it's difficult to say because the statements that come from the White House lack consistency. I think what they show above all is that the president does not understand NATO very well. He does not understand that it is a political military alliance. It is much more than the sum of the military forces that are, or in some cases are not available at a given time. It is having a unified political will and a general sense of agreement about what is best to do among 29 countries. And that is a very powerful advantage that any country can have, the advantage of having friends. It seems that the president discounts this advantage and does not consider the friendship of NATO countries to be that important.
John, Donald Trump also dismissed Japan, Australia and South Korea in that same address. Let me just quickly go over it. South Korea had to give out their own air defenses, which they had purchased from the US because US had them redeployed to the Middle East or the West Asian region. Australia is undergoing a major fuel crisis at this point. They're asking their own citizens to please resort to public transport. Don't use your own vehicles. That's the situation there. And as far as Japan is concerned, there are reports suggesting that they are in diplomatic talks with Iran because they've just secured the release of 2 of their own nationals from inside Iran. And this has happened just from the mid of March till now and just in the last 3 weeks. Do you feel most countries are now going to find their own diplomatic channel with Iran, even if it comes at the cost of a friendship with the White House or maybe just Donald Trump?
I think that most countries have had diplomatic channels to Iran all along. They are making use of it now, and they are, as countries do, looking after their own particular interests. I think that when the conflict was initiated on February 28th, there was not due consideration given to some of the possible effects, including most especially the disruption of world oil supplies and the significant portion of maritime commerce that flows through the Strait of Hormuz. I think it was not anticipated that the conflict would go on as long as it has, and it was not anticipated that Iran would take steps to close this waterway, even though that's exactly what they said they would do in the event of a conflict. So the whole thing does not appear to have been thought through very strategically.
Right, and also when these comments came in from Trump, of course he flip-flops on them, but then when you consider the fact that, perhaps, that could actually lead to very dangerous consequences. So how do you assess, now that we know that when Iran has clearly rejected, and they have some points that they're not going to stop the uranium enrichment, that is something that US and Israel does not agree on. There doesn't seem to be a line where they both will agree. And so how do you see this whole escalation going, and what kind of consequences would that be? And is this a sort of like a desperation of Trump that, okay, if they're not talking and we don't see a talk, I think this is the best way to get out of this war is by attacking and destroying Iran?
It's very difficult to say, and I said this last time I was on the show. It's never been clear what the actual objective for the conflict is. Is it regime change? Is it something to do with oil supplies? Is it non-proliferation of nuclear weapons technology? One day it's one of them, another day it's another. So without clear objectives, it's difficult to gauge if the war is successful or not, and it's difficult to decide when you have accomplished an objective that doesn't exist.
John, there were 2 mentions of Steve Witkoff even in this press conference by Donald Trump. He mentioned Mr. Witkoff, and then there were other names along with that he mentioned along with J.D. Vance. And they were the ones who told him that Iran is not agreeing to the deal. And then they went after that bridge. And then he also mentioned that Steve Witkoff tells me that Iran is difficult to communicate with. They don't want to communicate. Is Steve Witkoff driving US foreign policy?
I think Donald Trump is driving US foreign policy. Steve Witkoff is someone that President Trump trusts and sets a great deal of confidence in. And so he will consult with Mr. Witkoff, and Mr. Witkoff has been used as a special envoy and a negotiator, despite not having a background in diplomacy. But it is the president's responsibility and the president who is driving what amounts to U.S. policy at this time.
John, thanks so much for joining us here on the broadcast. This only seems to be intensifying. We're less than 24 hours away from that deadline expiring. Is there going to be an extension to this? That's an answer only Donald Trump can give. Iran seems to be ready for any assessment at this point regarding what comes after this deadline. Let's wait and watch. That was John Nader joining us from Washington, D.C. Let's move further. US President Donald Trump has sparked controversy by once again claiming that former President Joe Biden relied on an autopen.
Now, this is a mechanical device which is used to replicate signatures to sign official documents. Now, while interacting with children during the annual White House Easter egg roll, Trump claimed that his predecessor was incapable of signing his own name and alleged that Biden's aides used a machine to replicate his signature. He also added that it was better to sign documents personally.
Biden would use the autopen. We have an autopen policy. So he didn't sign. He was incapable of signing his name. So they followed him around with a big machine. You know what it's called? An autopen.
Now the comments echo repeated claims by Trump in the past. He has repeatedly alleged that Joe Biden was mentally unfit for office and has suggested that the use of a mechanical pen to sign memos, executive orders and grants of clemency during Biden's 4-year term may have been improper, potentially calling their validity into question.
However, Biden's team has dismissed Trump's past remarks, stating that the use of an autopen is a well-established legal practice carried out after a presidential decision.
It's on a knife's edge right now.
And well, shifting our focus to other global news, Hungary goes to polls in less than 1 week. Voting for the country's parliamentary election takes place on April 12th.
Well, if popularity polls are to be believed, this is proving to be the most challenging battle for incumbent Viktor Orban. Viktor Orban's 16-year rule faces a challenge from his key political rival, Peter Magyar. The latter has registered close to 20% more popularity than Orban across surveys. For many voters, corruption and education are major election issues.
However, beyond domestic problems, it is Hungary's alliance which will be put to test. Orban has been a vocal critic of Ukraine with the support that EU offers the warring country.
His rival Peter Magyar has a more Eurocentric approach and away from an existing closeness with Russia that clearly marks the distinction.
Now, with just 6 days left to polls, Hungary's youth is divided over who they will support. Here are some voices from across the country. Let's listen.
I would not like to live in a country where people voting for Fidesz or standing for the values of Fidesz are in a majority. At the moment, basically, I think that for 3 years I will stay here for university, but solely because it is very difficult to find an English language BA in the profession I am interested in. But if there'd be a Fidesz government, then for sure I will do everything I can to leave, study abroad, and I don't think I will come back if Fidesz stays.
Among young people, Fidesz has an image of being a group of grumpy old men who are corrupt and hidebound. Peter Magyar has an aura that he is an avenger, a rebel. He is more youthful than Orban. He dresses and communicates that way, and he is using the social media that way, and that's why he attracts most of the young people.
Orban is vastly experienced and has genius contacts at international level, such as Donald Trump, the president of the USA, and Vladimir Putin, president of Russia. He has huge experience. He is a real father and a genuine Hungarian leader.
NASA's Artemis II mission has achieved a historic milestone, setting a new record for the farthest distance humans have ever traveled from Earth.
Now, the 4 astronauts aboard the Orion capsule swung around the far side of the moon, surpassing Apollo 13's distance record set more than half a century ago. At about 7:02 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday, the crew reached 252,756 miles from Earth, exceeding Apollo 13's 1970 record by over 4,000 miles. The crew, consisting of NASA's astronauts Reid Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and a Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen, marked the achievement by hugging each other inside the capsule as they realized that they had become the most distant travelers in space in human history.
From the cabin of integrity here, as we surpass the furthest distance humans have ever traveled from planet Earth, we We do so in honoring the extraordinary efforts and feats of our predecessors in human space exploration. We will continue our journey even further into space before Mother Earth succeeds in pulling us back to everything that we hold dear.
Hours after they surpassed that distance record, the capsule passed on the far side of the moon, incurring a communications blackout. And that blackout lasted about a tense 40 minutes. NASA's Mission Control in Houston successfully re-established contact with Artemis II crew after the signal cut. Astronaut Christina Koch shared her reflections, stating that they always choose Earth and each other.
Houston, we have you the same, and it is so great to hear from Earth again. To Asia, Africa, and Oceania, we are looking back at you. We hear you can look up and see the moon right now. We see you too. When we burned this burn towards the moon, I said that we do not leave Earth, but we choose it. And that is true. We will explore, we will build ships, we will visit again. We will construct science outposts, we will drive rovers, we will do radio astronomy, we will found companies, we will bolster industry, we will inspire. But ultimately, we will always choose Earth, we will always choose each other.
During the lunar flyby, the Artemis II crew were tasked with examining 30 designated surface features, including the vast Oriental and Hertzsprung basins. In a symbolic gesture, crew members proposed naming two unnamed craters Carroll in honor of NASA astronaut Reid Wiseman's late wife, and Integrity after their spacecraft. In a radio transmission to Mission Control in Houston, Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen suggested the names, noting that the craters lie on the boundary between the moon's near and far sides. NASA confirmed these names will be submitted to the International Astronomical Union for consideration.
Well, Artemis II mission is expected to pave the way for NASA's long-term goal of returning astronauts to the lunar surface by 2028 and establishing a permanent presence on the moon. The crew now continues its mission, with splashdown scheduled in the Pacific Ocean near San Diego on the 10th of April.
All right, time for a very short break on World DNA. Don't go anywhere. Let's end up on the other side of World DNA. Promoter of an annual London Music Festival defended plans for Kanye West to headline it, and this amid a backlash over the U.S. rapper's previous anti-Semitic outbursts. We'll get you all the details on the other side. Stay tuned. You're watching WION World is One.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one. 5 states, one powerful voice.
From Tamil Nadu to West Bengal. From
Kerala to Assam. Every vote shapes the future. Get the election pulse only on WION.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Beyond the noise and rhetoric, no election, no ballot issue too small. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. More than just headlines. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION. World is one.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires, alliances, power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world. Because what happens in West Asia never stays in West Asia. This is the West Asia Post, the region's story, the world's impact.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is one.
Welcome back. You're watching World DNA with Jyotsna. I'm Shivan. Let's start with the headlines at this hour.
In Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock tomorrow night, where every power plant in Iran will be out of business.
U.S. President Donald Trump doubles down on his threat to wreck Iran's civilian infrastructure, warning U.S. forces could destroy every bridge and power plant in the country within 4 hours.
Iran dismisses US President's threats as baseless, says Trump's rude rhetoric and arrogance stem from a deadlock and are intended to justify US military failures.
NATO's a paper tiger. NATO is us. And when we needed them, but we didn't need them, by the way. We didn't need them, obviously, because they haven't helped at all.
U.S. President Donald Trump lashes out at NATO allies who did not support the U.S. in the war in Iran and reiterated his desire to annex Greenland. Trump says NATO is a paper tiger that Russian President Putin is not afraid of.
NASA regains contact with Artemis II crew as their spacecraft passed behind the moon, reaching the deepest point in space by any human.
Pakistan to close shops, markets and shopping malls except the southern Sindh province by 8 p.m. as part of energy conservation measures. The development comes amid a rise in fuel prices due to disruptions caused by war in West Asia.
Asia-Pacific markets rise on Tuesday following Wall Street gains as investors monitor escalating US-Iran tensions. Japan's Nikkei posts modest to strong gains, while South Korea's Kospi is up more than 1% and Australia's ASX surges nearly 2%. The United States pulled off a daring and a remarkable rescue of two aviators whose fighter jet was shot down by Iran.
The high-risk mission involved more than 170 American aircraft and some 200 troops and assistance from the CIA. President Donald Trump and other U.S. officials described an almost cinematic mission that lasted 45 hours and 56 minutes. It saw rescuers face major obstacles, including two Black Hawk helicopters coming under fire and problems with two transport planes that forced the U.S. military to blow them up.
This is a rescue that's very historic. It'll go down in the books. Late Thursday night, an American F-15 fighter jet went down deep inside enemy territory in Iran while participating in Operation Epic Fury.
Trump said the F-15 was shot down by a shoulder-fired heat-seeking missile, with the jet's two-person crew ejecting and landing in different locations inside Iranian territory on Friday morning local time. More than 20 military aircraft were dispatched to recover the F-15 pilot flying over Iran and facing heavy enemy fire.
Within hours, our armed forces deployed 21 military aircraft into hostile airspace, many flying at very low altitude, being shot by bullets. You bring rifles into play when you're going that low, but there are also certain advantages. And in broad daylight over Iran for 7 hours, at times facing very, very heavy enemy fire. We have a helicopter that's got a lot of bullets in it.
Well, and we're cutting across to U.S. President talking to the astronauts in Artemis II. Let's listen.
A lot of genius, but they're very, very proud of you.
These are visuals of the Artemis II crew who went incommunicado for 40 plus minutes, sparking a lot of fears, but then communications were re-established. And right now, these are live visuals where the US president is having a direct communication with the crew on board the Artemis II mission, which has now reached the farthest point away from Earth towards the moon.
Absolutely. And these four astronauts aboard the Orion capsule, they have swung around the far side of the moon. They have surpassed Apollo 13's distance record set more than half a century ago. Now, the U.S. President Donald Trump had, of course, praised the Artemis astronauts, saying that they have made history, and now he is interacting with them live as of now.
Administrator Alex, just get a quick comm check, make sure you guys are still on the line and we didn't have a handover.
I am. Yes, I am.
And integrity, and back over to you, Mr. President.
Yeah, I think we might have gotten cut off. It is a long distance. It's a long ways. The reception's been great. There's a little bit of about a 9-second delay, but no, I just had a statement for, I don't know what you heard, but I was just saying they're very proud of your brilliant person from Canada on the ship. And Wayne Gretzky is a great friend of mine, and he's very proud of him. And the Prime Minister I spoke to, they're very, very honored that you have a courageous person from Canada. You have a lot of courageous people from Canada. So it was very nice. I'm not sure if you heard me say that, but it was very nice.
Yes, Mr. President, we heard that, and we do love our Jeremy Hansen. We love all our Canadian astronauts, Jenny Gibbons, Josh Kutrick. They're just great people, and they're such a welcome addition to our Corps.
Great. Well, I really look forward to, when we can, I look forward to seeing you in the Oval Office. I'll ask Jared to bring you over, and I'll ask for your autograph, because I don't really ask for autographs much, but you deserve that. You really are something. Everybody's talking about this. And I look forward to having you in the Oval Office at the White House, and we will celebrate your incredible achievements and triumphs. This is big. This is really big stuff. The whole world is talking about it. And if you have the time, I will certainly find the time. I've been pretty busy also, as you know, but I will absolutely find the time, and we'll get together, and I'm going to be giving you a big salute on behalf of the American people and beyond that.
Thank you for that, Mr. President. And when you want us, we will be there. And thank you for your leadership. Thank you to Jared for his leadership. Really, thank you for taking the time out today to visit NASA. It's really special for us, but it's really special for the team on the ground. A whole team of people all around the world pulled this off, and we just want to say thank you to all of you for this. It is the thrill and honor of a lifetime to have been on this journey. Today was amazing, but this 3-year journey has been amazing, and it was made possible by the American people and the Canadian people, and we're so grateful to you all. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. And Jared, congratulations. We'll see you soon. And I know that you have Mars very much in your mind, so we'll start thinking about that pretty soon, I think. And thank you. Congratulations to everybody. I'll see you at the Oval Office.
Thank you for your time, Mr. President. It's been an honor.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
All right, well, that was an interaction of the U.S. president interact with the astronauts in the Orion capsule.
The conversation definitely, and the US president had a few nice words to say for Canadians in general as well. And of course, there's a meeting now that they fixed up with the US president as soon as they return to Earth. They're en route home. The astronauts have begun their return trip. We'll be tracking.
Probably that will be the first stop after they land Earth. All right, continue with the war in West Asia now in its 6th week is intensifying.
Tehran is under relentless attack. Iranian forces are striking back hard as well. In the latest, 4 people have died in Haifa, while Tel Aviv and parts of central Israel have suffered damages. This next report brings you the latest from the battle zone.
Across Israel, the skies lit up with streaks of incoming fire. Air defenses scrambled, interceptors rushed. But this time, several missiles slipped through. What followed was devastation. Iran has unleashed a fresh wave of missile attacks targeting key Israeli cities. Haifa took a direct hit. There was death and destruction. Buildings ripped open. Windows blown out. Streets covered in debris. Emergency crews rushed through smoke-filled alleys, pulling survivors from the wreckage. Residential areas in Tel Aviv and Petah Tikva in central Israel also came under attack.
The car of my parents just exploded. Yeah, it was terrifying. It felt like I'm losing control. It feels like I don't know what is going to happen. Yeah, I think the war. That's the price of the war.
Iran says it will continue to launch its retaliatory strikes and warns Israel and the US against targeting its civilian areas.
If attacks on civilian targets are repeated, the next phases of our offensive and retaliatory operations will be carried out much more forcefully and on a wider scale, and their losses and damages, if they persist in this approach, will be multiplied.
Israel also warns Iran against targeting civilian areas and says it has killed the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' intelligence chief.
The Revolutionary Guard is shooting at civilians, and we are eliminating the leaders of the terrorists. Iran's leaders live with a sense of being targeted. We will continue to hunt them down one by one.
With its targeted strikes, analysts say that Iran is now using more cruise missiles and multi-headed missiles, which are harder to intercept. The US and Israel have been claiming to have severely crippled the Iranian military, but the repeated waves of missiles and drones show that Iran still maintains its firepower to give punishing blows. Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
Alright, it's over to Afghanistan now, where devastating floods have been wreaking havoc across the country. At least 99 people have been killed, 157 injured.
Now, this comes as weeks of heavy rains have triggered widespread destruction across more than 20 provinces. And authorities say that nearly 6,000 families have been affected. Thousands of families have lost their homes, farmland, and access to basic supplies, and more than 3,600 homes destroyed so far. 300 kilometers of roads have been damaged, making relief operations difficult.
In a separate incident, 6 children were killed after roofs collapsed in flood-hit areas of Nangarhar, with 7 others injured. Security forces rushed to the site and shifted the injured to hospitals.
Heavy rains have also paralyzed transport in Zindajan. Many trucks are stranded on flooded highways connecting Herat to Islam Kala. Now, drivers are stuck in the desert for days with limited food and water.
Drivers are forced to stay here. As I mentioned before, the main problem for all of us is the price of fuel. If a heavy truck turns back from here towards Herat, it costs around 2,500 Afghanis $39 just for fuel. The drivers have no choice but to stay here in the desert, whether we are hungry or thirsty, even if it takes 2 or 3 days.
Well, the European Union says that it will continue providing life-saving assistance, but aid agencies warn that needs are growing fast as seasonal floods and fragile infrastructure leave Afghanistan highly vulnerable to natural disasters.
Now, senior advocate Dr. Menika Guruswamy scripted political history in India on Monday.
Well, she's become the country's first openly queer member of parliament after taking oath in the Rajya Sabha.
Dr. Menika Guruswamy, having been elected a member of the Council of States, do swear in the name of God that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India as by law established. That I will uphold.
It's a watershed moment in Indian politics. Her entry into the upper house marks a significant step for the LGBTQ+ representation in India and a broader acceptance of queer voices in governance.
A senior advocate at the Supreme Court, she has long been a prominent voice on constitutional law, democracy and civil liberties. She was among the key lawyers in the landmark 2018 Supreme Court case that led to the reading down of Section 377, effectively decriminalizing homosexuality in India. Dr. Guruswamy was fielded by the Trinamool Congress and elected unopposed to the Rajya Sabha from West Bengal. She has a long association with the party, having represented Mamata Banerjee's government in several legal matters, including the RG Kaur Hospital case in the Calcutta High Court.
A Rhodes Scholar at Oxford and a Gammon Fellow at Harvard, she has taught at leading universities and advised international organizations, including the United Nations, on human rights. Guruswamy now joins a select group of legal minds who have made the transition from the courtroom to the legislature.
Well, the U.S. service economy expanded in March at a slower pace as employment shrank and input prices accelerated sharply.
Now, that suggests growing business caution from heightened economic and market angst tied to the conflict in West Asia. The ISM Services Index came in a touch softer than expected, but the sector remains at healthy levels. And still, the details of the business survey indicates rising U.S. economic headwinds from the West Asia conflict. On the positive side, the new orders number posted a very strong print. However, the business activity component and the employment component dropped.
Well, the worry is that if the U.S. economy wasn't generating jobs in the good times, a situation where we have significant geopolitical, financial, market and economic uncertainty means that we could risk outright job losses in the coming months. At the same time, businesses are experiencing a sharp run-up in cost pressures for energy and other inputs due to the Iran war. The ISM's gauge of prices paid for services and materials jumped to the highest since October of 2022. The war is also fueling uncertainty about the economic outlook.
Now, the problem for the Federal Reserve is that inflation remains a worry. The central bank's employment and inflation goals are pulling in different directions, and that suggests that the Fed will continue to watch and wait.
Friday's March retail price data is likely to show annual inflation jumping to 3.4% from 2.4% on gasoline price hikes.
Now, Fed Chair Jerome Powell acknowledged in a question-answer session at Harvard last Monday that the central bank's available tools have no meaningful effect in combating supply shocks. He said they couldn't possibly print oil, for example. All the Fed can do is try to ensure that inflation expectations remain contained, and if necessary, they can restrain demand by tightening monetary policy. Apple has removed Bluetooth messaging app BitChat from its China App Store.
And after orders from Chinese regulators alleged illegal content in this, the app created by Block CEO Jack Dorsey remains available in other countries even now. According to a social media post by Dorsey, Apple notified him that BitChat had been taken down in China following an order from the Cyberspace Administration of China, or CAC. Apple clarified that the app continues to be available elsewhere and that the removal only affects China's App Store. The move comes amid heightened regulatory pressure in China, which is Apple's second largest market. Earlier this month, the tech giant reduced App Store fees for Chinese developers, a decision seen as part of Apple's strategy to navigate stronger scrutiny from authorities.
Now, launched last year, BitChat allows users to send messages without internet connections using Bluetooth links within a 30-meter range. Messages are ephemeral, stored only on users' devices, making them hard to trace. The app also supports Bitcoin transactions, adding a financial dimension to communications.
While accessible outside China, the delisting underscores the challenge developers face in navigating different regulatory landscapes and maintaining access to global markets. One of the promoters of an annual London Music Festival defended plans for Kanye West to headline it.
And this is coming amid a backlash over the U.S. rapper's previous anti-Semitic outbursts. The 48-year-old hip-hop star is due to play 3 nights at the Wireless Festival. The event in London is a part of a European comeback tour. The decision to book him as a headliner has already prompted several sponsors to pull out of the event. And according to media reports, the government is reviewing whether West should be allowed to enter the UK. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has already called his booking deeply concerning. In a statement, the managing director of the festival, Republic, which helps promote the event, urged West critics to show him some forgiveness. Ben called the rapper's past comments about Jews and Hitler abhorrent, but said that the festival would not provide a platform to extol opinion or whatever nature. He asked critics to reflect on their instant comments of disgust at the likelihood of him performing and offer some forgiveness and hope to him as they have decided to do. And the rapper has expressed regret for his conduct.
Kanye West has blamed it on his bipolar disorder. The campaign against anti-Semitism on Sunday urged the government to bar him from entering the UK on the grounds his presence would not be conducive to the public good. Kanye West, who has not performed in Britain since he headlined Glastonbury in 2015, has been heavily criticized in recent years after he made a series of anti-Semitic remarks and voiced admiration for Adolf Hitler. In May of 2025, he released a song called Heil Hitler, months after advertising a Hanken Crew t-shirt for sale on his website. Well, the song was banned by major streaming platforms.
Now, friends, actor David Schwimmer, who is a voice-first supporter of the Jewish community, is one of the popular figures from the Hollywood industry who has expressed his support to all the brands that have pulled out their sponsorship from the concert due to Kanye West.
Amazing. Amazing ride, amazing.
Stand back for a little bit.
Love the jacket. Love your energy, bro.
All right, with that, we call a wrap to World DNA for Day. News and updates will follow on the other side of a very short break. Keep watching WION World this month.
Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is one. In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION World is One.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires, alliances, power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world. Because what happens in West Asia never stays in West Asia. This is the West Asia Post, the region's story, the world's impact.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Beyond the noise and rhetoric, no election, no ballot issue too small. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics, more than just headlines. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION. World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is One.
Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is One.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One and this is Speed News. Let's start with all the top stories making headlines today. American and Israeli forces continue their targets on Iranian, despite a looming deadline set by US President Donald Trump, with Tehran retaliating. Reports suggest talks are currently led by Steve Witkoff, the president's special envoy, and Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law. The Vice President J.D. Vance, currently on standby, could be brought in if momentum builds for a direct meeting with Iranian officials. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson has attacked the US, saying the country has lost its diplomatic credibility. Russian intelligence has reportedly provided Iran with a detailed list of 55 critical energy infrastructure targets within Israel. A report by the Jerusalem Post highlights the deepening military and intelligence cooperation between Moscow and Tehran, suggesting that the information that was shared enables Iran to launch precision missile strikes against Israel's energy grid. The United States pulled off a daring rescue of 2 aviators after their fighter jet was shot down by Iran. The high-risk mission involved more than 170 American aircraft and 200 troops, as well as support from the CIA. The mission, which lasted nearly 45 hours and 56 minutes, saw rescuers facing major obstacles, including 2 Black Hawk helicopters coming under fire and problems with 2 transport planes that forced the US military to blow them up mid-operation. US President Trump said the F-15 was shot down by a shoulder-fired heat-seeking missile with the jet's two-person crew ejecting and landing in different locations inside Iranian territory. US President Donald Trump once again hit out at NATO allies who did not support the United States in the war with Iran and reiterated his desire to annex Greenland. Trump's remarks came ahead of a visit by the Defense Alliance's chief, Mark Rutte, scheduled for later this week. Trump recalled that he had asked, though not very forcefully, whether NATO would be willing to help. He said he was responding to it in the negative. The US president then went on to call NATO a paper tiger and claimed his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin was not afraid of it. The UN Security Council is expected to vote on a resolution to protect commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, but in significantly watered-down form after veto-wielding China post-authorizing force. Oil prices have surged since the US and Israel struck Iran at the end of February, unleashing a conflict that has run for more than 5 weeks and seen Tehran largely close the strait, a vital energy artery. Efforts by Bahrain, the current chair of the 15-member council, to secure a resolution that involved multiple drafts seeking to overcome opposition from China, Russia, and others. Pakistan has announced new energy-saving measures limiting business operating hours to 8 p.m. across most of the country as part of efforts to reduce power consumption. Well, the move comes amid rising fuel prices, which is driven by widespread energy and shipping disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, following the ongoing US-Israel conflict with Iran and Tehran's retaliatory attacks across the Gulf. The restrictions, however, will not apply in Sindh, where local authorities have opted not to implement the revised schedule. A missile was seen flying over southern Israel as the US-Israeli war on Iran continues. The missile was reportedly seen from Hebron and traveling to the Negev. The United States and Israel launched an attack on Iran on February 28. Well, since then, Iran has been retaliating with missile strikes on Israel and US targets in the Gulf countries. According to the chief of World Health Organization, an individual contracted to provide services to the World Health Organization in Gaza was killed during a security incident. Following the incident, the World Health Organization suspended medical evacuation of patients from Gaza via Rafah to Egypt until further notice. Meanwhile, 2 of WHO's staff members were present but were not injured in the incident. The 4 astronauts of NASA's Artemis II mission cruised to the deepest point in space reached by any human, following the tug of lunar gravitational force. Meanwhile, NASA Mission Control in Houston regains communications with Artemis astronauts traveling around the moon after an expected blackout that lasted some 40 minutes. The 4 Artemis astronauts set a new space flight record as they exceeded the maximum distance from Earth reached in 1970 by Apollo 13 after a nearly catastrophic aircraft malfunction which cut short that mission, forcing Lovell and his 2 crewmates to use the moon's gravity to help return them safely to Earth. US President Donald Trump criticized former President Joe Biden's use of autopen to children as he was hosting at an Easter egg event in the White House. Trump recalled how former President Biden used the technology to sign several documents something he has long criticized about his first rival in the last presidential campaign. Last year, Trump directed his White House counsel to investigate whether former President Joe Biden's aides covered up alleged mental decline and unlawfully used an autopen on Biden's behalf to sign policy documents, suggesting the exercise, if conducted, is improper and must be rendered invalid.